Okay, so talking about the first question we'll talk about is what does land reforms include? Okay, so let me write down the answer here. You also can decide and tell me what is the answer. So land reforms generally includes these three things, that is the regulation of ownership, second operation, leasing, sale, and third is inheritance of land. Okay, so this is the basic things. Okay, and the next question we will talk about is what are the objectives of land reforms. Okay, so the first one is to enhance the productivity of land by improving the economic conditions of farmers and tenants so that they may have interest to invest in land, improve agriculture. So that is the first objective. Then is to ensure distributive justice and to create an egalitarian society by eliminating all forms of exploitation. And the third is to create a system of peasants proprietorship with the motto of the land to the tiller. And the fourth one is to transfer the incomes of the few to many so that the demand for consumer goods would be created. So this is very important also. Let's come to the next one. Okay, because we have spoken about the abolition and all. So the next question is what are the tenancy reforms? Okay, so what is the answer? So this is first is the regulation of rent, second is security of tenure, third is ownership rights of tenants. Okay, now second, in India, how are tenants classified? Okay, so this in India, the tenants are classified into two. The first one is occupancy tenants, and the next one is tenants at will. Okay, the next one is I'll ask you the next question. Yes, what is land ceilings? Okay, so what is land ceilings? So land ceilings, yes, on agriculture land means it's a statutory maximum limit on the quantity of land which an individual may hold. Now the imposition of land ceiling has two main aspects. Okay, so this will come in your exam. The first one is ceiling on future acquisitions. The second one is ceiling on existing land holdings. Okay, so in 1961-62, ceiling legislation had been passed in all the states. So you have to remember that when was the ceiling legislation passed, and it was passed in 1961-62. Okay, so this is very important. And when was the new policy of land ceiling done in India? So yes, the answer is 1971. Okay, and what were the main features of this 1971 land ceiling? So yes, the answer is the lowering of ceiling to 28 acres of wetland and 54 acres of unirrigated land. Second is change over to the family rather than to the individuals. Okay, and lower ceiling for a family of 5. Yes, then there must be fewer exemptions from ceilings, Then there must be also declaring Benami transactions, and all this should be null and void. There must be no scope to move the court on the ground of any infringement, and there must be proper fundamental rights. Okay, so this was very very important also. Now, why had this land sealing program failed? Okay, so the program basically failed to achieve its desired objective because the farmers were very reluctant to exchange the lands for the new one. And they also complained about nepotism and corruption. So nepotism is something like, the people who's coming from the same family or the relationship, they are being given the preference. Okay. Yes. The next question is, what is cooperative farming? Okay, so cooperative farming is basically done to solve the problems of subdivisions of land holdings. Okay, so the idea was to make farming profitable for small and marginal farmers having small pieces of land. So that is very very important. Okay, so yes, now we will talk about is the zamindari, mahalwari and the rayatwari system. Okay, so now I will talk about it also. So what was the zamindari system? That is my question. So what was the zamindari system? Yes, can anybody tell me? The zamindari system was started by the imperialistic East India Company in 1793, and here the intermediaries who were known as zamindars were collecting the land revenue from the farmers, and they were getting some commission from the Britishers. Okay, what about the Mahalwari system? Okay, so under the Mahalwari system, the land revenue was collected from the farmers by the village headmen on behalf of the whole village. Okay, now in this system, the entire village is converted into one big unit called the Mahal, and was treated as one unit as far as payment of land revenue was concerned. Okay, so Mahalwari system was basically popularized by Lord William Bentinck in Agra and Awadh. Okay, so this is basically done by them. Okay, now and zamindari system was done by Lord Cornwallis. Okay, the last one, that is the Rayatwari system. So what is the Rayatwari system? So under the Rayatwari system, the land revenue was paid by the farmers directly to the state. Okay. Now in the system, the individual cultivator was called as Rayat, and they had the full rights regarding the sale, transfer and leasing. And and as I said, where was the system more popular? Okay, so they were called as cultivators, and if you see, the system was mostly found in extended to Tamil Nadu, then Maharashtra, then East Punjab, Kurg and Assam. Okay, so these were the questions on this. Let's talk about the next questions. Yes, we will talk about some. We already spoke about the land reforms. So now I can go back to some more questions where, so just let me wrap this. Yes, so now we will talk about is the cropping patterns. Okay, so let me write down here. Cropping patterns or factors which were affecting most cropping. Okay, so what does cropping pattern mean? So let's say define cropping pattern. So cropping pattern means the proportion of area under different crops at a point of time, or changes in this distribution over time, and factors determining these changes are called as cropping pattern. Now cropping pattern in India is basically determined by rainfall, climate, temperature and the soil type. Okay, so here right now the technology plays a very important role in determining the crop pattern. Okay, now when was HYV introduced? So let me write down here. high yielding variety seeds. It was introduced in 1960s. And which were the states it was introduced? It was introduced in Punjab, Haryana. Very important question, students. Uttar Pradesh. Okay. And it was basically mostly focused by Green Revolution, was focused basically on wheat revolution. Okay. And yes, now the next question, what are the factors which determine the crop pattern in India? Okay, so now there are basically five factors. The first one is natural factors such as rainfall, then soil, then climate, etc. The second one is historical factors such as land type, type of ownership, land tenure system. The third one is social factors, customs, traditions, social environment. The fourth one is economic factors such as prices, income, input prices, then size of holdings. Okay, and the last one is also depending on government policies such as taxes, subsidies, export policies, and etc. Okay, let's come to the next question. So explain the cropping pattern in India. Explain the cropping pattern in India. Okay. So what is your answer to this? So basically the cropping pattern, the first one comes is food crops. Now under food crops we have cereals, millets, pulses, vegetables and fruits cover the 3/4 of the total crop area in India. The second one is rice is the most important food crop in India and it's grown on more than 1/3 of area under food production. The second most important food crop is wheat and it is grown in 25% of the area under food corporation. The combined area under coarse, that is cereals like jowar, bajra, maize and ragi, is 22 million hectares. And the major commercial crops, they can ask you this question, what are the major commercial crops? That also comes under the crop pattern of India. So the major commercial crops in India are sugarcane, cotton and jute. Okay, so this is basically, they can ask you this question. Let us see the next question which I have for you. Okay, so yes, can you tell me in 19, okay, like, how much is the percent of horticulture grown in India? And how much is the area which is taken in India? So let me write down. The answer is 9% area of horticulture. Okay, and the total area which is contributing to gross agriculture output is 24.5%. Okay, though vegetables and fruits are grown, but there's a contribution is 24.5% of the agricultural output and the in the country is coming from horticulture. Okay, talking about vegetable crops. Okay, so the vegetable crops is more, like, what are the main problems of vegetable production? Why is vegetables not grown so much compared to the the carbohydrates? Okay, so first is there is lack of planning in production. There is non availability of seeds of improved variety. Then third is there is high cost of basic production elements. Fourth is there is inadequate plant protection measures and non availability of resistant varieties. There is weak marketing facilities, so promotion is mostly done through for wheat and rice. The transportation limits are there. There is a post harvest losses which is not catered by the government, and lots of abiotic stresses are also there. Yes, now let's talk about is something about the situation we have spoken, and now let us talk about the farm subsidies in India. All right, so let's talk about the farm subsidies. So farm subsidies. So the farm subsidy, which was the first farm subsidy introduced in India? So yes, the answer is HYV program in the mid 1960s, where the priority was given to supply quality inputs like irrigation, water, fertilizers and electricity to the Indian farmers. Okay, the second question, how does subsidy work? Okay, so we can have a flow chart here. Let me write down the answer. First, the price is paid by farmers for the key inputs, and then it reaches to the actual retail or market price of the inputs, and then finally the farmers receive subsidy. Okay, so which are the two common ways of subsidizing agriculture in India? So yes, the answer is firstly, governments may pay much higher prices for the agriculture products than what the farmers can obtain under free market environment, and secondly, by supplying the inputs at a price that is below the cost of supplying these inputs or below at the price that would prevail in the open free trade environment. Okay, so that is why these are the two ways where subsidy can be done. Okay, so now let us talk about the next thing. What are direct and indirect subsidies? Okay, so direct subsidies are in the form of direct income support to the farmers, and cash payments to the farmers is an example of direct subsidies. Indirect subsidies are non-cash benefits. They are in the form of non-cash benefits, and they are mainly provided to support the farmers. Now, input subsidies like fertilizers, credit irrigations are all the examples of, as I said, direct farm subsidies. Okay, now let's talk about something about e-technology. Yes, so let's wrap this. Let's talk about e-technology. So what is NAM? So NAM is National Agriculture Market. Okay, so this is a pan India electronic trading portal, okay, which connects the APMC market and other market yards, to create a unified national market for agricultural commodities. Okay, so NAM is a virtual market, so if you can say also it is a virtual market which is online. Okay, but there is a but here, but it has, suppose if the virtual market phase, it has a physical market at the back end. Okay, so when was NAM announced in the parliament? So NAM was announced during the budget 2014-15, and it is proposed to achieve through the setting of a common e-platform, which initially will start from 585 APMCs selected by states which are linked. Okay, so when was NAM launched? So NAM was launched on 14th April 2016 with 21 mandis from 8 states joining it, and the first phase of connecting 250 mandis was over on 6th October 2016. Okay, what do you mean by ATIF? So ATIF is a centrally sponsored scheme specially for NAM, and it's called as Agri Tech Infrastructure Fund. Okay. Now these are very short abbreviations which you have to remember. The next one, what is DAC? So DAC means the Department of Agriculture and Cooperation. Okay. And what is the next one? What is SFAC? So SFAC means the Small Farmers SF. So Small Farmers Agri Business Consortium. I repeat, Small Farmers Agri Business Consortium. Okay, so this is now this software. Let's come back to the next question. How much is the government going to spend on NAM? Okay, so the central government will provide the software free of cost to the states. In addition, it will also give a grant to 30 lakhs per mandi, per market will be given as a one-time measure. Okay, yes. So what are the benefits of NAM? They can ask you a question. So first is for the farmers, NAM promises more options for sales. It would increase his access to markets through, warehouses based sales, and thus, will save the transportation. It will also help for the local traders in the mandi. It will offer the opportunities to access a larger national market for secondary trading. Okay, even the bulk buyers, processors, exporters, etc. will be able to participate directly in the trading at the local mandi or market level through the NAM platform. Okay, then there will be also an advantage of the gradual integration of all the major mandis in the states into NAM will ensure the common procedures for issue of licenses, then levy of free and movement of produce. Okay, so NAM will also facilitate the emergence of value chains in major agricultural commodities across the country, and will help to promote scientific storage and movement of agriculture goods. Okay, so now which is the most important model which is like followed by all across India and it's become very successful? So which one it is? It is the Karnataka Agriculture Marketing Model. So Karnataka has been the forerunner in the market reforms, and that is why this has been done. Now the next abbreviation they can ask you, what is NCLT?